Carol Gilligan brought about a major revolution in ethical thinking as a result of her book, A Different Voice. In this book, she examines her experiences working with sociologist Lawrence Kohlberg. Kohlberg conducted a series of experiments across various cultures with children of different ages, trying to discover where there are common stages of moral development. And he proposed a 6-stage evolution, moving from that which is good is what is good for me, to that which is good, which just is good in essentially an abstract sense, that it's good for the whole world, it's good for the past, it's good for the future. It would be good for aliens if only they knew about it. Kohlberg found that surprisingly few of the young women who were in his study reached that topmost tier. It was almost exclusively populated by young men. And he suggested that there must be some reason there's an inhibition of moral growth in young women. That perhaps it was cultural, perhaps it was physical. He didn't know for sure, something to be investigated further. Gilligan worked for him as a graduate student. She looked at these results and drew a different conclusion. One that I think is prepared by the great anti-moralists of the 19th century, Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. They gave us the idea that morality doesn't have to be the best thing, some kind of abstract universal morality, and that morality should be tied to real human experience. And what Gilligan suggests is that these young women, again, she's not sure of the reasons either, these young women have come up with a reality, a morality that's just as viable, just as real, in fact, perhaps more concretely settled in this world than this abstract morality. Indeed, one of the things many students of mine over the years, many people I've talked to over the years, is that they find these moral theories of Kant or Aquinas, even the utilitarians, as sort of cold and distant. They don't have anything to do with me and my life. Now, I used to object to people about the utilitarians. I mean, pain and pleasure are real physical things as opposed to the categorical imperative and an essence that we can't scientifically demonstrate. But it's still based on a principle which is utterly abstract. And I see why people are just a little view it as distance from them. They don't quite embrace it because it just seems a little like, well, why? Gilligan suggests that if you take a look at the data, the actual answers provided by these young women in their answers to Kohlberg's study, you find that they develop into essentially 3 stages of development that are concrete. They are, first, self-preservation, second, self-sacrifice, and then third, emphasizing the importance of nonviolence. And it's an evolution. You see, first I must survive. I can't be anything in the world unless I survive. That's just a fact. So as a young, vulnerable mammal, I have to worry about me first. Now, when I reach a state where others can come to depend upon me, I see that there is a virtue in protecting the species and protecting the weak, just as I was protected. I will protect the new ones. I will protect the weak ones. I may have to give things of myself, even up to my life, But I'm willing to do that because it was done for me and because it's good for the species. Then comes a realization that the problems that we have to deal with that force this self-sacrifice on us all comes from violence, whether it's violence against property or violence against people, violence against the earth, violence against humanity at large. That is the source of so many, many, many of our problems. And so she says these young women embrace a resistance to violence, that we must be less violent in order to be good people. This all emerges out of a realization that we are a group, a family. My son-in-law and I were talking recently, and he said, you have to understand, we're all mammals. And for a moment, I didn't quite get him. And so he drove it home. He says, reptiles, they lay eggs, they go away, they never see the kids again. Birds, hatch them, feed them, never see them again. Even if the bird fails to feed its hatchlings, there's a good chance they may find a way to survive. But mammals have to be fed. Mammal, milk. There has to be a mother to feed the child or it will die. There is no hope of accidental survival because it is the milk that the child must have to live. So there has to be integrally in any mammalian relationship a mother and a child. Among the higher primates, we have discovered that it helps to have a full family where we all support each other, that we are able in that unit of real relationships between adult and adult, between infant and adult, between child and child. These relationships shape what's good and what is evil, what is right for us to do and what is wrong for us to do. That which threatens the group threatens my personal survival. It may call me, therefore, to self-sacrifice. But better still, let's not have that kind of activity in our group. Let's not have that kind of activity in our relationships with other nearby groups. And let us encourage them to likewise. Let's just get along. Let's be at peace. Let's do what we have to do to keep going forward, supporting one another in our real, honest relationships. Now, we can talk about, the notion of the brotherhood of man or a universal family. We can talk about it as a notion, but as a reality. As a reality, as I sit here, there are children dying of all sorts of ailments. There are children starving from all sorts of things. There are adults as well dealing with these same deaths all around the world. Why am I not doing something about it? Why do I continue to look out for me? Am I evil? Well, Gilligan wants to propose, no, you're not evil. You're being asked, when someone says something like that, to support a relationship that doesn't actually exist. It doesn't actually make the world real. I mean, that's after all why they show all those pictures of starving children when they want to raise money for children. some of those children that we raise money for aren't starving at all. And some of these that we see the pictures of were dancing happily the day before and maybe dancing happily again in a day or two. From the purely abstract sense, then, what has to be made real to us is that abstract connection. And we make that real by illustrating their similarity to us. In other words, we're trying to create a real connection. And people do create real connections. And how wonderful it is when they do. But it is in the creation of that real connection that this kind of help emerges, this kind of support emerges, giving yet more credence to Gilligan's reasoning that it is in concrete, real relationships that emerge out of first my need to keep myself alive, then my need to keep my group safe and alive, and then keep safety the most primary concern for all of us so that we can all go forward. This is typically referred to as feminist ethics. I prefer to think of it as the ethics of caring. I know for a fact, well, I don't know that for a fact. I take it back. But I do know that my son-in-law is a son-in-law. He's not a woman, and yet he's thoroughly invested in this ethics of caring, this idea that concrete, real relationships beginning in the family, moving out into the world as far as we can really go. Go as far as it'll take you, but when it stops being real, that's where it ends. If I can't make it real to me, then I don't have it exist for me. You know, to talk about a hypothetical person in a hypothetical place around the planet dying a real death, but for all I know, I mean, as far as how real it is to me, it's purely hypothetical. It's a statistical inference. It's not me watching somebody die. To try to say that I have the same level of obligation to that person that I have to a dying relative seems ridiculous. But those abstract thinkers seem to think that that person's suffering, that person's dignity, that person's essence should matter as much to me as my relative? No. I think there's a real breakthrough here, and one that needs to be continued to explored. Something you should think about. Something you should talk about. Keep on talking philosophy.